Well, good morning, everybody. Hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day. It is a very warm day in coastal North Carolina. And I don't know, I think it's like maybe 84 degrees right now. Very windy too. But I want to talk a little bit about cash crops. So I did a video recently about, can you be self-sustainable and all that stuff? And within that conversation, there was a little bit of, is it worth it? Are you really saving money by gardening? And I think what we need to look at are like what crops make it worth it to where you are actually saving money. It may come as a surprise, and this probably conversation will change each year as inflation grows and prices of crops change and all that. But not every crop is definitely, I don't want to say worth growing, but as far as a financial standpoint, you're not really getting ahead by growing it. I mean, you got to look at it realistically. And I always try to think of, of all the effort that we put into our garden and everything. Are we really saving money by doing this? I mean, some stuff is just to grow for joy, and that's 100% respectable. But in my garden, for me, it's more than that. And I want to keep that in mind as I go through my garden each year and I make my plans. I want to grow some of the crops that are more valuable, we'd say, and basically cost more at the grocery store. Total side note though, check out the blue hive. Man, she's stacked, boy. There's gonna be some honey coming out of that. And if you guys want to see more about my beekeeping, check out Sandy Bottom Bees. We're doing bees here, and then we've got another farm up the road called Sandy Branch Apiary, or Cypress Branch Apiary, that we're doing bees, so check that out. But our first crop I bring it here, and it's really important for this time of year, is gonna be my snow peas. So I'm coming out every day now, every couple days, and harvesting snow peas. These are Oregon snow pea pods. These go for about $5 for a half a pound. And every time I harvest off of here, you can see they're loading down now. They're just starting to really take off. They do very well. We get about a half a pound every other day. And that's basically off of an 8-foot row. So we've got 4 feet here, and then 4 feet over there. 4 plus 4 is 8. There you go, taking it back to the old school, right? And I mean, we'll get a harvest off these. We might have maybe another month. So you're looking at every day or every other day for the next month, that's gonna be 15 times. 15 times 5, you do the math. That's a pretty good deal, right? And I mean, that's one of the ways that we can value our garden up more, is by growing these snow peas. Now another one we do, which I wasn't so sure about, but these cabbages, which we're gonna harvest soon. These are our bobcat cabbages, and if I'd planted them about a month earlier, we'd be singing a different tune. But at this point, they all have some kind of head on them. They're gonna be small for this harvest, but we've already gotten a bunch earlier. But we just went to the grocery store, and these were $5 a head. So I mean, simply put, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50. $50 worth of cabbages. I left that one out because it's got a disease and it needs to come out. So, I mean, cabbages are another great one for the cost effectiveness of a garden. We've got onions over here. Not so much. I mean, these are Vidalias. If they got to be about a pound each, there's 90 onions in here. That would be $90 worth of onions, because they're about $1 an onion for the Vidalia sweet type large onions. Ours don't get that big typically. Haven't figured out why. We do get decent sized ones, but they're just not like the maximum growth. But it's not, to me, it's not really a money saving crop. Same with the potatoes. This is a more put back and enjoy the fact that I grew potatoes. It's not something that I would say saves us any money at all. We about break even, maybe a little bit ahead on it. But then we've got this bed over here where we do save a fair amount. So these are peppers. And I mean, you don't have to be a rocket scientist. You go to the store and you buy a bell pepper, and I mean, good night. They're high dollar, right? You're talking $5 for a couple bell peppers. So we're loading up on these. We've got, I think, I may have gotten a little confused here, but this whole row right here is all bell peppers. So, and then we've got various hot peppers intermixed in between. You can see that that would add up very quickly. So if we do about average on the bell pepper plants, which is somewhere between 6 and 12 peppers per plant, and we've got, I believe in this bed I've got 8, so I believe 3 peppers are about $5 right now. So each plant's worth, let's just call it 10 bucks. You can see that we're talking 80, 90 bucks worth of peppers right there, just in the bell peppers. Now the hot peppers, they're a little bit different. I grow those more for sport, so I can do other things with them, but we're not taking into account once we preserve stuff, we're just taking into account fresh produce. Because once you preserve things, which is another category we're about to get into, you'll see that the price goes up dramatically on what you're saving. And so there is a way to do it. You know, we look at tomatoes, and I've got to get tomato cages. They're now collapsing, so I've got to stop procrastinating. But if we look at these, just fresh tomatoes itself, this is kind of a weird one for me to justify as a positive gain financially in my garden, a tomato. Tomatoes don't cost a lot of money, and let's set aside for a second the fact that they taste better and all that stuff, supposedly. And the reason why I say supposedly is because I'm not a huge raw tomato fan, so I can't really say one way or the other. But what I can say is the quantity of tomatoes you get off of a plant makes it a valuable crop. And then not to mention the fact that you can can those tomatoes. You know, you can make sauces, you can can them whole, however you choose to do so. And you're taking, like if I do my Roma tomatoes, I typically put between roughly 8 and 10 tomatoes into a jar. You start canning them. If you get organic, because that's what we have to do now, we have to say it's organic. Let me turn around so the wind doesn't get me. Organic tomatoes canned, it's about $1.50 to $2 a can. And I think off of one plant, I'm estimating I can get about 10 cans. So you can see that that cost does add up. Now, another one that goes in line with the whole preservation portion of it is cucumbers. Now our cucumbers are very small right now, starting to come along. We've got a couple here. The heat's really getting them today, so I need to turn on the water to give them a little bit of a break. But cucumbers themselves fresh, quantity wise, sure. But now let's turn those into a jar of pickles. Now, if you listen to the Backyard Gardens podcast, or if you go to the Instagram for the Backyard Gardens podcast, there is a recipe, a picture of a recipe we posted up for Clausen pickles. $5 a jar. Based on the quantity you can get, you could jar 10, 15 jars. You're talking 50, 75 bucks worth of cucumbers. Now we start adding them up. But I wouldn't say just go make a bunch of jars of pickles if you don't eat pickles, right? You got to enjoy them in order to have it in your garden. So that makes a big difference as well. So let's come over and look at this bed. We planted, you can barely see them though, but here and here are cantaloupes, and I can't remember what I put there. It's something different. It's not a watermelon. It is some kind of squash. I can't remember off the top of my head. But again, if the cantaloupes can produce like they are supposed to, then that could be a cash crop too. Now we have cucumbers, or not cucumbers, we have carrots in this bed. That's a cheap crop. It's not a money-saving crop by any stretch of the imagination. You can get a big bag of carrots for $5. I probably got maybe $10 worth of carrots in that bed, maybe 15. So I guess in the grand scheme of things, yeah, sure, because I spent $3 on seeds, but the amount of time it takes in the ground and all that stuff can kind of add up. But then we'll take them, we'll can those, or we'll make other recipes with them and can them, and then the value of that crop starts to rise. So there's a lot of different options you can do. One of the crops that we're gonna be doing soon, I hope to plant them this week, is gonna be corn. I don't consider that a cash crop for me, because I mean, I can get 3 ears of corn for $1. At least it was $1. You know, we grew a lot of lettuce, and it's the same thing. It's not really a cash crop. Based on the amount of time it's in the ground and the cost at the grocery store, Not really. Now I will say that one head of my lettuce is probably 2 to 3 times the size of the head of lettuce you get at the grocery store. So there is that, but you know, go through these crops and start thinking about each one and saying like, hey, if this is something you care about, which clearly if you're watching this you do, which one of these crops is really going to be my money maker crop? You know, sweet potatoes is one of our money maker crops as well. That's a big one. Green beans, believe it or not, are. Now, that's opposite of everything else. If you eat them fresh, you actually are making more money on the green beans than if you can them, because it's cheaper to buy canned green beans than fresh green beans. So there is that aspect. So just thinking about all of this, you can kind of see how it goes. Now, one crop that I grow that I do not get any headway on, but I really enjoy growing, is black-eyed peas. I can buy a bag of black-eyed peas for $2, and off of a 4-foot row, which is typically what I do, I will generally grow probably about 50 cents worth of peas, but that's a pound and a half of peas. So it could work out better, but I enjoy growing those, and I'm okay with that in my garden. I like to set aside space for what I call my cash crops and then my enjoyment crops, because I can't do everything based on that. But I think in the grand scheme of things, if I'm smart about what I do, meaning I'm not constantly buying and replacing beds and putting in decorative rock and stuff like that, which is why I chose to go for the rusted look, which is code for I'm a cheap bastard and I don't want to put anything down. There's my secret. Then you really do start to save a lot of money. But if you really get into the aesthetics portion of it and you start doing a lot of things like that, which is 100% acceptable, you are going to fall behind on the cost effectiveness of your garden. So just kind of keep that in mind this year as we go through and start thinking about it, because we get through the summer season, and I really do think that in the fall and winter, there are more options for cash crops. So it's interesting to think about that. Now, one thing I do want to say too is if you're going out into a restaurant and you're buying like fried green tomatoes and stuff, it's just an immature tomato, man. You get those all day long. You know, so think about that as you're doing these, like green onions and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff that you get that's like a delicacy is just an immature plant that they harvested a little bit earlier. So you can get all that in your garden easy. If y'all could do me a favor, I have to admit I don't go into the grocery store as much as I should, and part of that is because of the amount of food that we grow, so I may be a little bit out of touch with prices. If I've missed anything that is a cash crop in a garden or potential to be something that's really expensive at the grocery store, feel free to let us know in the comments, because that's really going to help some people drive their garden plans in a certain direction. And it's very valuable information that can really turn the tides on the profitability, meaning money savings in your garden.